Hello, Amber. Thank you so much for
Hey.
joining me today. So, today I have the pleasure to interview our 13th guest for 2024, Amber E. Johnson, daughter of God, caregiver, blogger, podcaster. And Amber's podcast channel is called B. I love that, which stands for Blessing, Edifying, Encouraging Others to Live Their Best Life. Some of her favorite topics to talk about are faith, caregiving, relationships, and content creation. Her mission with her platform is to spread the love, the light, and the hope of God with every postcast. Amber will share a little bit about her background, and then she will go on to discussing the topic for today, which is what not to say to a caregiver. With this being said, we welcome Amber to Be an Encourager podcast. So, my first question to you, Amber, today is: can you share a little bit about your background? How did you become a Christian, and how and when did you feel the need to change, and why?
So what had happened was, I was younger and my aunt, she used to take me to church all the time and we would go to vacation Bible study. We would do devotions at her house and things like that. But I realized that when I got older, looking back in hindsight, that those were the rituals, right? But there's a
Mm-hmm.
difference between rituals and relationship. And so when my daddy got sick, that's when things became real to me. Like in my late 20s, that it became real that I have to lean on God because, people can be fickle and circumstances change, but God is solid. He's a solid foundation for our lives. And it's a day by day journey, like
Mm-hmm.
being with God and learning about God. And the more you learn about Him, the more you learn about His nature and His character, it makes you want to be closer. But for all of those people out there that you feel like it has to be this perfect relationship, or you have to do everything right, and every day you have to read a certain number of chapters or whatever, give yourself some grace. And
Mm-hmm.
God is like honored if you just take that time to just be with Him. And even if it's a scripture a day, even if you're just you put on your praise and worship in the morning time, even if you're being of service. Like there's so many different ways to worship God. Instead, it's not just, oh, I have to read 5 chapters. So that's just
Mm-hmm.
what I want to make people aware of. Like we have to give ourselves grace because God has already given us grace. But it's like, he not expecting us to be perfect. We're human, but he just wants you to make an effort in a relationship, just like with any other relationship. So that's what I had to learn for myself because you're younger, you come to know God, but it's not the same as when you get older and things happen in your life, and that's when you realize you really need that relationship with God.
Great, great explanation. I totally agree that that relationship with God, that's what's important. And I was raised in church, so I can identify like what you were saying, that going to church and we think that that's it. But when we come to know God, say those difficult situations where we say, oh my God, I really need God to help me through this. So it's really important for us to know that it's a personal relationship with God. So the topic for today is what not to say to caregivers. And we want to raise awareness about the reality of the journey of a caregiver. So before I ask you the next question, I'm going to share some information and some data about stroke victims. So according to the CDC website in 2021, 1 out of 6 deaths from cardiovascular disease was due to stroke. Every 40 seconds, someone in the United States has a stroke, and every 3 minutes and 14 seconds, someone dies of a stroke. And every year, more than 795,000 people in the United States have a stroke, and about 610 of these are first time having a stroke. So a stroke has a related cost to it. In the United States itself, it's nearly 56.5 billion between 2018 and 2019. So this total includes the healthcare services, the medicine to treat the stroke, and many missed days of work. So stroke is the leading cause of serious long-term disability. So stroke reduces mobility in more than half of the stroke survivors, especially those age 65 and older. And Hispanic and Black adults, they have a higher risk of getting their first stroke, twice as high. So, as a caregiver, I know that you are a strong advocate for the cause of stroke awareness. Can you share about how life is for stroke survivor and also for the stroke caregiver? How does a day-to-day look for a stroke survivor, and what do you recommend that the listeners do, or what not to say to them or ask the caregiver?
Well, first of all, I would just like to say that for stroke survivors, each day can look different, and there's so many different things to consider. They may have a sensitivity to light or sound, and they might want you to keep the volume low, keep the lights down low. They are very I feel like they're more needy than someone would be without that condition. So it's like you have
Mhm,
to be aware of that and have more patience and gentleness for that, because you may get called repeatedly, and it's just always having to reorient the person
mhm,
and just let them know what's going on. That helps them have a sense of calmness. And for my dad, not everybody has a feeding tube, but my dad has a feeding tube. So
mhm,
that means that I have to prepare that. And me, my mom, and we both take care of him together. So we're a team. So
mhm,
like yesterday was a different day because she had to go somewhere, so I had to start the
mhm,
day. And then it it was like a whole thing like last night. So I'm like running on like 4 hours. So I'm
right,
like,
mhm,
I was up until like 8 o'clock this morning.
mhm,
So it can be like a little bit unpredictable and unstable on both sides, because you never know what the day is going to bring. And for the most part, it's just the doing all of the things that have to be done for the person.
mhm,
And it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy. It can be grueling, emotionally, spiritually, physically, to take care of someone. And also you're having to balance the necessity of catering to their emotional needs as well, not
mhm,
just taking care of the person. Like, yes, there are, you have to give them medicine, you have to feed them, you have to change them, you have to groom them, you have to get rid of their waste. You
mhm,
have to do all of these things, making sure there's inventory, like all the supplies that they need, make sure they have it. um they're keeping up with appointments, calling different people about different things that the person might need. So it's the work is never done. You're just
mhm,
constantly in different cycles. And kind of the way that I live my life is in like 3 hour block, 3 to 4 hour blocks of time. I'm like, okay, I have to do this, and then I'll
mhm,
make room for what I want to do, and then go back to that. And so you kind of have to have these different hats on, and
mhm,
try to keep all the balls in the air. And
mhm,
sometimes something falls, but it's like being able to adapt, being able to pivot. All these things are crucial in that journey. And what I would say is, as far as people not saying something to a
mhm,
caregiver, I would say, do not say, "Oh, you just need to get out," or, "Oh, you're
mhm,
missing out on your life." Those are two of the most common comments that I might receive.
mhm,
And when I hear that, it just makes me feel like, getting out, yes, that's awesome, but it's not the end all be all. It's not going to be the solution, because when I
mhm,
return, I still have to do that. It's not like it's going to be like, oh, I go outside and everything's perfect. Yes, there are moments that you need for respite, but
mhm,
it's also important to be aware that sometimes the caregiver does not have energy to even go out. It's enough just to get through the
mhm,
day sometimes and get out of bed, you know, and to keep
mhm,
continuing on, because this has been going on for about 7 years of my life at this point.
Mhm.
And it's a long haul. It's not like an acute thing. It's a chronic situation. This is not something that goes away. So you have to
Mhm.
really adapt to that new normal. And like there's a lot that goes with that. And then even getting out, like people don't know this, but it's not respite care is not so readily accessible in terms
Mhm.
of long-term care. So the person you would be able to have a nurse come out weekly. That's what we can
Mhm.
have, but you cannot have a nurse come out weekly and then have someone come out like for days, like for to be hourly as well, or you know what I mean? So it's like you can't have both. You will have one
Mhm.
but not the other. And that's like something that people need to understand when they say that as well. And it's like as a family it can be grueling, or kind of like you feel like the other person is missing out, like because like when my mom goes out, okay, she can go out, but I can't go out because I gotta watch him. Somebody gotta be here with him. So
Mhm.
and then and vice versa. So it's not like we have to find someone to intentionally get out together, and that's not always easy. And the other thing I was saying, people talk about missing out on life, but all these people out here having second and third acts, 50, 60, 70, still thriving. Your life is not over. And my
Mhm.
thing is, I feel like God really will redeem the time,
Yes.
and it's a
Mhm.
special time that I cannot get back.
Mhm.
I can be out there gallivanting, traveling, as people say. That's like the
Mhm.
big thing they say. Oh, you could be traveling, and I'm like, but my
Mhm.
father, though, like he's not going
Yes.
to be on earth forever. This is a season of life where
Mhm.
I feel called to be here for him, and it tells us to do this in the Bible to honor our parents, and it's like if we honor him and we honored
Mhm.
our parents, like we gonna have the life that we're supposed to have, like, and it's like sometimes it's hard to like, okay, this is my reality, but at the same time, it's like I don't want to miss out on it. This is my
Mhm.
dad. And a lot of people don't understand that.
Mhm.
And to be frank, if you haven't had that kind of relationship with your parent, sometimes that
Mhm.
can be hard to understand as well. So that's just something I would like to share.
Well, the first thing that I want to say is that I honor you for being such a good daughter and for honoring your parents and doing this. It's a lot of hard work from what you were sharing with us. And one of the things that I heard you say is for individuals to have a little bit more sensitivity and more empathy, that they might not understand the situation, but you know that God is calling you to be that good daughter for your father. So that's admirable. You know what you're doing, it's admirable, and it's a lot of work. And it's also sound like you have to do a lot of special accommodation. So you mentioned that you have sort of like a routine that you follow. You have to make sure the equipment is clean. That's a lot of work. So again,
Yeah.
I am, very impressed with you taking on that role. And I, God bless you.
Thank you. And you know what's funny about it? God has a sense of humor about these things.
Mhm.
Because I went to nursing school, so it was like God was equipping me for this, right? But it did not really pan out for me.
Mhm.
And one of the main reasons was the instructor felt like I did not have a grasp on the process of treating a patient with, guess what? A feeding tube.
Oh,
And look what
wow.
I'm doing now. So
Yes.
I would just like to say, for all the people who were doubted and were cast aside
Mhm.
and were told they were unqualified, you just wait and see what
God
God's going to
trains
do with
you.
that season. Okay? Because he turned
Mm.
that thing around. It was not wasted. I met great people. I learned about how to navigate and appreciate diversity, and as far as
Mhm.
community is concerned. So for me, I was like, what if I decided that I wasn't? Because it was kind of like a haphazard decision. You know how you don't know what you're really going to major in? You're like,
Yes.
okay, I'm going to try this. Just try this nursing thing. And it didn't work out, but at the same time, it did, because I wouldn't have the knowledge to be able to
Mhm.
help like I do.
Well, he has you on the job training right now.
Yes. Okay.
So
So
I'm going to go on to my next question. American Heart Association state that 80% of strokes are preventable. There has been an alarming increase in the number of young people getting stroke within the past few years. I don't know if you heard of, but the stroke is no longer just affecting the older population, but it has also increased to the young adults. So not knowing the warning signs places a lot of people at risk. how important it is to know your risk, and what are the signs and symptoms of a stroke, and what places a person at risk of a stroke, and what can be done to prevent a stroke.
See, this thing is like, I feel like it's one of those things that's kind of like subjective because like yes, you can eat right, you can exercise, you can drink your water, but sometimes stress happens. Sometimes it's hereditary, like in terms of the blood pressure thing. If you have high blood pressure that runs in your family, that's
Mhm,
going to put you at risk. If you have like a stressful lifestyle, like if you're not eating right, you're not exercising, all that stuff, right? It contributes. It can only help to try to live a healthy lifestyle, but you know how, life
mhm,
is. So it's like there's no way to say, oh, it's a guarantee that if you do everything right, things won't happen. But it's like it's really important to try to take care of yourself regardless. And the signs that I would say that are most noticeable are if somebody was having a stroke, their speech would be slurred, and they
mhm,
would have like weakness on one side or both, like there's numbness, like their limbs would get, like they have paralysis in their limbs, like their arms and their legs, it might not
mhm,
work. And just all of those types of things they can it's like, things you can see externally. And
mhm,
so because I know it from my personal experience with my dad, what had happened with him when he first um had the strokes. Like he had like these things called TIAs, which is a transient ischemic attack,
mhm.
which is a mini stroke. So you
Yes.
have those little moments, and
Mhm,
then it might lead to something bigger. So it's like important to pay attention to that. And like, I feel like headaches can be something that people need to pay attention to as well. Like
mhm,
take care of yourself. Like if you're not feeling right, like take your blood pressure. That's something simple you can do. Take your
mhm,
blood pressure and just be aware of your body, like, in terms of how what feels normal to you and what doesn't. And with him, he was just like, he literally could not walk. We had to like help him, like find a way to help him outside to the ambulance. That's how bad it got.
oh,
He could not
mhm,
walk. And then he just like it, in the beginning, after he had the because to just to really give a little more context, he had several strokes, and then he got better, he recovered, right?
mhm,
And then he got hit by a car in August of 2017.
oh,
So after that,
mhm,
you have a surgery. They want
mhm,
to take you off of the blood thinners so you don't bleed out. So you have the risk of another stroke.
mhm,
So, and and that's another thing too. People have to get to the hospital in time. Don't try to like diagnose it or wait or whatever or go lay down.
mhm,
If you don't feel right, go to the hospital right away, because the sooner the better, and they can stop the damage. They have medicine that they can give you to stop the damage. So, with him, we got him to the hospital and everything like that. But like the accident, it had caused another stroke, which was more debilitating and caused him to be bedridden. So, and that's another thing that people don't understand about the strokes, why you really want to take care of yourself, because
mhm,
you run the risk of being incontinent, not being able to feed yourself, toilet yourself, or do anything. And then it was a point where he couldn't even talk, so we had to like try to use like these little magnets on a board and things
mhm.
like that. And it was just a lot, we had to just really try to communicate. So that's something to really be aware of.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. We only have 10 minutes left, and I want to include, um, I know that you shared a little bit about your father's rehabilitation, so I'm not going to ask you that question if it's okay. But if you
Hmm.
feel like you want to elaborate a little bit on the rehabilitation, I know that you shared quite a lot on that. Um, but I'm going to ask you the last two questions so that way you can elaborate, have the rest of the time. What can a
Hmm.
person do if they witness someone having a stroke? And what steps should they take first? And how can they help the victim? How does a person who is high risk becomes prepared in case of a stroke? And the last one is if you can offer some words of encouragement for those individuals who are struggling with their loved one who had a stroke, or a direct caregiver, or just a word of encouragement for all the listeners that they can stay encouraged and stay living a healthier lifestyle. So I'm going to leave you the rest of the time for you.
Right. I think that it's vital that you call 911 right away if somebody's having a stroke. There's very little that you can do as the
Mhm,
layperson. Just leave it to the professionals. Make sure you call 911 right away so they can get the help that they need. And as far as encouragement for the caregivers and the stroke survivors, take it one day at a time. Keep your head up. Give yourself grace. Have compassion for yourself. Have
mhm,
empathy for the situation that you're in. Understand that everybody's story is different. If you can find support groups online, like Facebook has a great stroke caregiver support group as well that I'm a part of. But it's also important to like understand when you need to take those moments away from like those types of things, because it can get heavy as well with everybody
mhm,
sharing and kind of commiserating around the situations. So it's very important to just take care of yourself so you can take care of your loved one if you're the caregiver. And as far as
mhm,
the stroke survivor, just really trying to keep yourself in good spirits, because it really comes down to the mindset at the end of the day. And also, on the caregiver side, encouraging the
mhm,
person to talk, reorienting that person, including them in your daily life, not like kind of ignoring them besides the caregiving, just making sure that you are telling them that you love them, that
mhm,
God loves them, that you're just trying your best to keep their spirits lifted, encourage them, and make them laugh, take time to talk to them and things like that. So it's just so much involved that I could not even tell you
mhm,
everything in this time that we have. But
mhm,
it's just important to always keep yourself in the word and pray, and
mhm,
just have the right community around you. Support matters. So for people out there that are wondering, what could you do? What should you say to a caregiver? Hey, how are you doing? Give them a call, give them a text, drop some food off. You don't even have to come inside, or offer to sit with the person maybe for an hour. No one's saying it has to be
mhm,
this whole grandiose thing where you actually
mhm,
take care of the person. Maybe it's just sitting there so the other person that's caring for the person can get out for a moment, and just that idea of asking, even if you didn't do anything like that, that means the world to a caregiver,
mhm,
to say, "Oh, somebody actually sees me," because it can be a lonely and invisible circumstance sometimes. So let's make sure that we're seeing each other as the caregivers and as the support of the caregivers, and also making the caregiver, the person you're caring for, make them feel seen. So it's all about that, being seen, known,
mhm.
loved, and heard on all sides you know?
Amazing words of encouragement. You shared how important it is for the outsiders to also see that the caregiver might need some support and be there for those caregivers. And as believers, I think that that's one of our commission, to be there for others that are sick and are suffering. And like you said, not necessarily they have to go and help out and taking care of the patient, but perhaps maybe they can do the dishes, help out with the house. So amazing words of encouragement. And I honor your time and I thank you so much for sharing your expertise. Again, I am totally very impressed with what you do and your caretaking of your father, because my dad passed away last in 22 of cancer, and we
I'm
used to
sorry.
take care of him at home too. So it's a lot of work, it's a lot of work, but you're amazing. So I want to thank you again and thank you for just showing up and keep doing what you're doing. You're an amazing nurse.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.